Today I'm going to show you how to make a little itty bitty sketchbook that is like a little matchbook. I started making little sketchbooks and things and bookbinding when I was in art school back in the days when I was at Capilano College. I had a teacher who really loved bookmaking. She was my painting and drawing teacher, and she recommended this book called Cover to Cover. It's an older book, but it has really beautiful ideas for interesting journals and little fold-out books that are kind of similar to these little ones. Really great illustrations showing you how to do all the stitching and the folding and the binding. So this is Cover to Cover by Shireen LaPlante, and if you want to learn more about book binding, I'd suggest this book. It's older, but it's a wonderful one. So for today, we are going to make a little book like this. I wanted to share first this other one that I have made. This one is made out of a luggage tag, you know, those manila tags. And I made this back in 2008, and it's a little, what's called an accordion book, and it folds out like this. And it has all these photos from a trip I took to Oregon in 2008, and it's a little memory book. I called it Take 10 because it's 10 photos, and it was sort of a play on words about taking 10 minutes to yourself. I knew I was going to have a busy year because I was going to do my Bachelor of Education, and I thought this would be a great reminder for my trip. But anyways, on with today. We're going to make these little matchbook ones. So what you will need, I'm working with a self-healing mat because it's great for cutting on and it helps me measure things. You will need paper for a cover. So I found a scrap, this is just watercolor paper that I'd played around with. That will be my cover. You need some paper to go inside. I recommend a paper that's not too thick. This is a thinner watercolor paper. You could also use just drawing paper because you won't be able to staple very many pages into your book. It gets too thick really quickly, probably only 4 or 5. So a thinner paper for that, a little ruler. And if you have one, or you're going to be doing lots of sketchbook making, this is called a bone folder, and it's a tool for scoring the paper, and I find it really a really useful investment. If you don't have one of these, you could try using maybe the corner of a credit card or something else, maybe even just your thumbnail to try to score it. You will need a stapler, and I'm also going to use, I have this handy dandy little scrapbooking cutter, and if you don't have this, you can just use your cutting board to cut on with an Exacto blade. So here we go. My little blue book here is, the cover is made out of cardstock and it's 4 inches. So I'm gonna cut this piece down by 1.5 inches wide. So it fits to my cutter this way, so I'll do the 1.5 inch wide first, and then 4 inches long. So the first thing I'm going to do is score this fold here. So this is how the bone folder works. You just push down and it creates this nice line here for you to fold on, and then it folds really nicely. You can also use the corner of the bone folder at the right like that to squeeze it down. Okay, and next up I need my little pages to go inside, and the pages I put in here, I want them to fit just inside, so I'm going to make them a little narrower. So we had this as 1.5 inches, so I'm going to do 1.25. By 1.5. So I have my little pages cut here. I'm thinking that it might be too thick to fit in there. I cut 6 and it feels pretty tight. So I think I'm just going to use 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Had trouble counting them there. So you get your little pages lined up, and it's okay if they're a little bit irregular on the edges. and you'll tuck them inside the book. Now, you might not be able to go all the way to this edge where your crease is because it won't fold over them. So you nudge them up just a millimeter or two so that the top part will be able to fold over top. If you just fold it, it's probably going to push them this way anyways. Now this is a bit of a tricky part. You need to use a fair amount of force to get the staple to go through. So I'm going to stand up, put my full weight on it. Okay. And then, you know what? It didn't come through, so I'm going to try that one again. Hopefully I can use the same holes. This is how it goes when you're making tiny things or experimenting with new things. You might need to try it a few times. Okay, so I think that one took, and then what I want you to do is check the back. So my stapler isn't a really heavy duty one, and the staples are actually still sticking out, and they're quite sharp. So here's where the bone folder comes in handy again, because you can use it to just push them in and make sure they are secure. You could use your ruler to push them in too. So now that they're in, I've got my pages secured. Okay, and then we want to leave a little bit of space at the top here before we fold it. We're going to score it. This is where the mat comes in really handy because I can just line it up and know that I have a straight edge. Score it once there. And then if you look at these, this book I folded it and it just has one fold here, but this little book that I made for my daughter, it has an edge here. Do you see the difference? So one just has one crease and one has this space in it. So I'm going to do that to show you how to do this black one. So I've done the first score, move it along and give it, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch. Maybe not quite. Score it again. So now you've got 2 folds to work with. You have to be mindful you don't make this gap too big, otherwise your cover is not going to fit to seal. I made a few and they came up a little short, so watch your measuring as you're folding. Yeah, so that should work there. It's got some space there for the pages, and then a little stiff the first time, folds in like that. So I have this cute book. It's really fun to use kind of upcycled papers to do the outer cover because already I have a nice design and then I could draw on it. You could put the date and your name in here, or if you have a title for your little book, and then away you go. You might need to pre-fold some of the pages before you work on them. Again, the thinner the paper, the easier it will be to work with. This is a little bit tight, but I could even try scoring it here so that as I work on each page, it will open up a little bit more nicely than it wants to. Yeah. So super cute little ones. If you haven't seen this one already in some of my posts on social media, I'll show it you a little bit closer. So I'm just doing teeny tiny watercolors. Okay, I think you'll have lots of fun with this project. I'd love to see what you make.